This is Azerbaijani Odular Yurt Radio 102.7 FM CFRO Vancouver Co-op Station.
Today we are going to present an interview with Dr. Reza Baraheni. Dr. Reza Baraheni, great Azerbaijani author, named as the Iran's finest living poet in 1977 by Harper's Magazine. He is considered the best literary critic in Iran. Dr. Baraheni, the author of the more than 60 books of poetry, fiction, literary theory and criticism, currently teaches at Center of Comparative Literature at University of Toronto. Baraheni is the winner of numerous literary and human rights awards from the US, Canada, Iran and other parts of the world. He was the president of PEN Canada from 2002 to 2002. Born in 1935 in the Iranian Azerbaijani city of Tabriz, he knew at young age that he would fall in love with languages. Unfortunately, no one could foretell that the world in which he lived would orphan his native Azeri-Turkish language and put him at odds with subsequent Iranian governments. During 2-hour interview, Mr. Baraheni spoke about his Azerbaijani-Turkish identity in Iran, childhood, educational background, experience at Iranian prisons, professional work related to Iranian literature and human rights, racism and human rights abuses against Azerbaijani Turks and other minorities in Iran. Please stay with us. We promise you a very interesting program.
Would you mind speaking to me a little bit about your childhood and what shaped you? Because I'm aware that you were born, in Tabriz to Azeri parents. I don't know which term is. People say Azerbaijani, Iranian is neutral, and some people say Azeri is more preferred.
We always call ourselves Turks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We call ourselves Turks because Azeri is something that is, sometimes we call ourselves Azeri just because we come from Azerbaijan.
Yeah. The Cartoonist Rights Network International awarded
Yes, I saw that. I heard about that.
And it was mostly that it was an award for courage, but most in the community say, well, that was because of someone saying they wanted freedom of expression, freedom of thought, to put something out there. As a writer and as someone who advocates free speech and free expression, which is what this cartoonist was claims that the person was.
You know that I wrote a full article about that cartoon. In the Persian paper here. I spoke of that because it really did not deserve the kind of long article, but I used that as a pretext, and then I wrote my own view on this kind of racism. I saw that he had been granted an award on that thing. It is unfortunate because generally you cannot actually do injustice to another nationality, which is an oppressed nationality, but at the same time win an award for it. It's exactly like, for instance, somebody in the States insulting the blacks, and then the whites giving him an award. That everybody would raise hell. And I know that many Iranians now are Iranians, as well as, of course, many Azerbaijanis, and who are for equal rights for everybody, against the awarding of this this person.
Yes, Adap wrote a press release and wrote a letter to the director, and they actually had to rewrite some things that they put on their website when we're researching it. Nikhan Kosa said that he didn't know something to do with the fact that people in Iran, and there was some sort of conspiracy that was not putting the Azerbaijanis, Turks in a positive light. So that there was misinformation that definitely was there.
Yes, I think that's the fact, of course, is that I know Nikahan Kosar recently. Not after the award, but before the award. I met him in a meeting. Sometimes even because he lives here, but I haven't discussed that with him. And in the old days, he never used to speak with me. And one day he spoke with me, and I said, "What was wrong with you that you were not speaking with me?" He said that it was because of your article about the caricature. I didn't know that he had had anything to do with it.
He's on the board.
Yes. So it was just recently after, the award was given that I found out, a friend of mine told me that actually it was Nikahan Kosar who had suggested that an award should be given to Neistani. But in fact, the father of Neistani used to be a very, very good friend of mine. I didn't know about this until I found out, because there are two brothers. One of the brothers writes poetry, and the other brother is a painter. But and he used to be a wonderful poet, but he died a long time ago. I had corresponded with the other brother who used to write poetry. I never met or had anything to do with the person who actually did the character.
The cartoon.
We raised objections against it, and I think that the objection stands. Nikahan Kosar should not have interfered in this. There's nothing to do with it. You cannot insult millions of people, and that in a cartoon, and escape with it without apologizing. And I think that if Nikahan Kosar has done this, he should also apologize to the Azerbaijanis because of this, because I think this will discredit him in the eyes of the Azerbaijanis as a human rights activist, and he considers himself to be a human rights activist.
Yes, Dr. Baran, and that is so interesting, and that's something with my work with ADAPT that I'm trying to do, and also just even speaking with you, is for an American and a non-Persian looking inside the world of Iranians and the different nationalities and groups that live in it, and just the struggle for equal rights. I wrote a blog entry about the cartoon strip and just the response that ADAP had, but also the director, Dr. Russell, had his own response, and I'm hoping to write something about that. But they said there was freedom of speech and of, like they said, the freedom of expression should be paramount. And I know one of my friends responded, and she, the conversation that we had going on was, oh, is it because a lot of non-Persians don't understand that it's racism, or they don't understand that this is oppression and this is a violation of just basic rights in general. And then there's also there's also that narrative that Mana Neistani is Turk or Azerbaijani Iranian. And so immediately my friend and I were going back and forth, well, this person couldn't have done this or done this, because we don't even understand that it is. You have to sort of hear the other side. And there are a lot of parallels to the civil rights of Black Americans in the 1940s that we see in there. How would you communicate it to a non-Persian, a non-Iranian, saying that this is racism? Because there are a lot of articles out there that say no, Azerbaijanis were just being overly sensitive.
No, I think that this has been a tendency on the side of Persian racists against the Arabs, the Azerbaijanis. In other words, the Kurds, and also those people who have a dialect different, who have an Indo-European language, but they speak in a dialect different from Persian. So everybody is mocked by the Persians just because they use a Turkish dialect or their language is Turkish. The Persians for a very long time, they called the Turks the Turk Khar, which means donkey Turk.
Yes.
And they called the Rashtis Kalle Mahi Khor, that is people who eat the head of fish. And then
which is not bad.
Personally, I think that people should use their talent for creative things, and the creative, generally a creative person is not a racist person. And then I think that sometimes racism is an internal thing, because it is people have been trained to be a racist. They are not born racists. They are, because of the education, because of the indoctrination of the government, family, or people. They're always looking for people, victims who would be helpless and cannot do it. And then you can always swear at them, you can all call them down. And this has happened. And I think that there should be an apology on the side of the people who gave the award, and there should be an apology on the people who recommended that the award should be given, and an apology on the side of the person who actually painted the painting. This created an uproar in Azerbaijan, and if these things happen, they are going to be somehow alienated from from what is happening, and then this might in future create all kinds of feelings among the Azeris that if they can
get away with this, yes,
can get away with giving us all these racist accusations and so forth, then why stay with this country? You know what I mean?
Yes,
so
surely.
If they want people, the people of the country should be equal in everything. And they should have their own language, they should have their schools in Turkish, they should have cities in their mother tongues, and it should not only take place for the Azerbaijanis, it should take place for all the oppressed nationalities in that country. Otherwise, it will be almost impossible to hold that country together as one single country, because the Iranian Azerbaijan, the population of the Iranian Azerbaijan, and almost half of the population of Tehran who are Turks, Iranian Azeris, that population is twice the population of northern Azerbaijan.
Yes, I've heard it. Yes.
And the population in Tehran, almost half of the population in Tehran are Azeri speaking. And in fact, after Istanbul, the second biggest Azeri populated area would be not Tabriz but Tehran. How many blacks are in the States?
Black. I know. I don't know, but there are a lot. That sounds like
there are a lot, but certainly half of the population of New York is not made of blacks.
No,
okay.
Not New York.
Half of the population of Washington is not made of blacks.
No, not anymore.
Okay, when you look at it, more than half of the population of Tehran is made of Turks. And you cannot simply label half of the people of Tehran, with millions and millions of Azeris in the other places, particularly in the two Azerbaijans, that's the eastern and the western provinces of Iran, you cannot label them as people who are ignorant, stupid, backward, and things of that sort, insects. And so I think that they, I think if I see Nikohang, I'll tell him. I think that Nikohang himself
I think you should.
apologize to the
I think so.
Azerbaijanis.
I think so.
I think that he should apologize also if he wants to, if he wants to stay within the framework of
Human rights.
kind of human rights affairs, and I think that he should apologize because you cannot do this and get away with it, because it will be a label that will stick up to the end of his life, and he should actually apologize. The other guy had actually apologized. Yeah, but the problem is that to go and get an award on the basis of that caricature, I think, is completely the opposite of the kind of goodwill that he should have shown, and he hasn't shown that goodwill. I think it's. I wouldn't. If I knew the guy, I would simply tell him, do something about it. Because this is going to stay. When something of this sort stays with you up to the end of your life, then your whole literary or artistic career is destroyed.
Yeah.
Because the world is not moving in the direction of racism.
No, it's not.
Moving in the opposite direction. And many people, have taken the trouble. They've lost their lives. There's so many Azeris now in prison just because they want,
cultural and linguistic rights.
Cultural and linguistic autonomy. And you cannot have, to accommodate, another language.
Yeah.
Instead of learning, they should be quite free. To learn whatever language they want to, but they should first learn their own mother tongue to whatever level they want to, because I think that some of the Persians are extremely stupid. They think that they can get away with it, because generally they say, well, the Persian language, how beautiful it is. Is Turkish that beautiful? Well, if Turkish,
they haven't spoken. They haven't spoken to Elif Shafak yet.
Yes, first of all, they don't know that whatever I can say in English and also in Persian.
Yes.
And English being, much more stylized with a greater 10 times, greater in vocabulary than Persian.
Yes.
Okay. If if I speak Turkish to my people, I will simply exactly speak the way I speak English, and perhaps much better.
Wow, of course.
Then I will carry all the vocabulary I have in English. I will give it to Turkish, just as I have done that in the case of Persian, because Persian, I'm considered, many people have written about it, I don't consider myself, but I'm considered to be the father of Iran's literary criticism.
Yes,
I created its language, I created its terminology, I wrote so much about it, I've written more than anyone else in the history of the country about this, and every day, I get so many emails and letters, which actually, people ask me, what shall we do about this? What do you mean by this? See, the fact is that I can do that. I should have done that for the Turks, but with the Turks, I didn't have the opportunity of getting published.
Yeah.
So I think that everything should be free for these. It's not 20 people among 1,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost half the population of the country.
Millions.
It's really crazy. It's backward. It's totally backward.
And you know,
the funny thing, of course, is that there used to be an Arabic province in Iran, you know, which is the oil province of Iran.
Yes.
And even you can learn Arabic. I know Arabic. I can read Arabic and understand it. I don't speak it.
Yes.
But they are not taught in their schools Arabic in order for them to speak Arabic. And they are Arabs, and they speak it. In other words, typical Persian has turned into a typical racist. You know, there may be many exceptions, but you know, the people who write about these things, I find, I remember that when I was having polemics with 4 poets, this was about 30 years ago, or 35 years ago, they wrote an article and said that this is the brain of a donkey. And since donkey, you know, the word Turki khar,
yes,
the Turk, donkey Turk,
yes.
They were, you know, all 3 of them, those poets, had only an ordinary secondary school diploma, and I had a PhD in English literature, and I had published almost 1,000 pages of fiction and poetry. And
Dr. Baraheni, in speaking to the Turks community, I hear that when they experience this sort of racism, so an average Azerbaijani Iranian or an average Turk will say, we'll hear somebody say takehar or this cockroaches term used with them, and they'll say, oh, they've shared with me that no, that the person who says it, who's Persian, will say, no, it's not me, I don't mean you, I mean the Turks in Turkey. Or even if they say, they'll say that it's my mother is Azeri, or I speak Azeri, or the person who said this is also Azeri, that's why I'm saying it. So it seems that in some ways the racism is also being perpetuated by people who are supposedly Turks in heritage.
No, I think that it would be impossible to find an Azeri Turk who would actually take the label and apply it to himself. And I really don't think that would take place. And I think that I've never heard that when they say Turkikhar, it means they're speaking about the Turks in Turkey. They're not speaking about them. Turkey is far more democratic than the Iranian thing, and so it's almost as largely populated as Iran. I believe about 70 or 80 million people, and at the same time you have to realize that Tehran is the second, after Istanbul, Tehran is the second largest Turkish-speaking city of the world. And if they do this, it's going to be difficult for the Persians to walk in the streets of Tehran, Tabriz, or Reza. You know, how can you call a person a donkey and then at the same time go to his city?
Yeah, you know what I meant was more the frustration that a lot of Turks feel is that that there are in the community, there are some who believe in the philosophy that they were originally Persians and Turks came in and invaded. So that's why it justifies the government's policy of trying to Persianize everyone.
Well, the problem is that, first of all, if they believe that the Turks are donkeys just because they're Turks, then they should stop turning donkeys into Persians. You know?
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
No, I mean, it's why do that? If they're doing it, they can. If they want to do it, they can have they can go into a stable and then take donkeys and turn them into Persians by forcing Turkish through their throat. You know, that's not going to take place. So you cannot call people donkey and then think that they're going to learn your language. See? So to tell you the truth, as considered to be that country's greatest or best literary critic, that's myself, it would be difficult for me to be a donkey and at the same time to understand what is good and what's bad in their literature.
Of course.
You see, it's just unfortunate and stupid and racist, you know, and they should stop denigrating the Arabs, the Turks, the Kurds, the Baluchis, you know, and everybody.
The Lords and
yes. So it's unfortunate.
With the life that you've led, and you're still leaving, you're still going forth and doing so much. How do you see the power of fiction? Like, you know, I'm seeing a lot of parallels. As a black person, I'm seeing a lot of parallels of the struggles with racism now, because it's not as apparent. There it's like black and white, or the popular form, and the one that's sort of like under the surface and subtle is what's going on in Iran, and that's why I think it's harder to see, and the light must be shown on it. But I see a lot of parallels with the civil rights struggle of black Americans in the 1940s, or with the apartheid struggle in South Africa and what is still going on, and just wondering if fiction can help that, because it seems that fiction also played we do know that fiction and writing played a big role in civil rights.
Yes, but I'm sure that it did, but the problem is in the civil rights, the blacks and the whites and everyone was writing in English. There was one language they were using. Now, for the Azerbaijanis at home, they speak Turkish. When they walk out, they speak Persian with the Persians, and they speak English with the English. They speak Turkish with the Turks. So, where is the mother tongue? Why don't they let them learn their mother tongue in the universities, at schools, and in the elementary schools, the kindergarten, and so forth? And had they learned their own languages, would they have written, let's say, their works in Persian? They would have written it in Turkish. So there would have been a great number of books in Turkish and a culture in Turkish right from the beginning. And unfortunately that has not taken place. Only for 1 year we had Turkish as the official language of the city of Iran. I mean,
for 1 year. Which year was that?
That was
in the 1920s.
December 1945 until December 1946, when there was a democratic government, an Azerbaijani democratic government in the Iranian Azerbaijan.
How do you, with all this that is really discouraging to learn about, and discouraging is an understatement. I mean, a lot of human rights struggle, a lot of basic violations, and people who are advocating for equal rights. It's hard not to get, what is the word that I'm looking for, disillusioned, burnt out, and feel like there's no hope. A lot of black civil rights activists. Sometimes some of them, not all of them, but some, like Anne Moody, or they left the country, or they moved to France, where there was also racism, but it was different for Black Americans, or they moved to West Africa, or just leave. How do you keep staying?
I think the case of the blacks in France is quite different. For instance, the case of blacks in the States, because the blacks in the States, there are millions of them. In the case of Azeris, there are so many millions of Azeris everywhere that somehow one can say that Azeri is the second language of the country. It's not like Kurdish, and it's not like Arabic. It's not like Baluchi. It's not like Turkmen. Wherever you go, you see the Azeris because of the vastness of the area, and also they travel. They're looking for jobs. The university students, for instance, are accepted in this university or that university, and they go from one place to the other. So they have to do something about it, you see. And in order to do that, you see, they have to announce that.
I agree, because as a non-Iranian, until a couple months ago, March or so, speaking to a friend who's Turk, who's Azeri-Turkish speaking, I just thought that Iran was Persia and Persia was Iran, and it blew my mind to know that there were other nationalities and groups and ethnic groups who are living in Iran and who are not Persian. And I just wondered, how does that work? So this person is not Persian?
If the country is to be considered Persian, then I think that what is going to happen is that they will say, since we are not Persian and these areas are not Persian, then why don't we separate?
Yes.
You see, and that is going to be a bloody warfare.
It is. Secession is never good, I think.
Yes, that's why I think that first of all, it's somehow depriving yourself of other cultures, because it's good to have a variety of cultures. And second, it's going to be a bloody war. And in this case, of course, it will be the people on the outside the capital who are going to be hurt, because the capital will give the order, the capital will carry it out, and then the army or the secret agents and so forth will start just murdering people. So there's only one way, and that is to have a kind of United States of Iran, or United Provinces of Iran, or whatever, or United Federal, the Federation of Iran. That I think could actually could solve the problem, and then they could have this internal situation, and then they could be united against any kind of foreign aggression or whatever. In other words, the country could be democratic and united at the same time. It would be ideal. I mean, I think that people should have, they don't have to be homogeneous in everything. They could be heterogeneous. And at the same time, in some very, very important aspects, they could be homogeneous, considered to be homogeneous, so that the country will stay intact and nothing will happen to the country. I believe that some kind of federation would be the best thing. I think that's the only way that this problem could be solved. Otherwise, it's going to hurt the country, and it's going to be warfare and civil war. And I think if there is a civil war on this thing, other countries are going to intervene. To tell you the truth, I think that Turkey will not stay silent. And of course, from a long distance, Americans will try to, cut Iran into pieces. And I think it will be the fault of the government in the capital that without understanding the democratic ideals of the oppressed nationalities, it's going to be, to keep everything as it is, because this is not going to work. A couple living together, and one of them every day, using all kinds of slogans against the other person.
Verbal abuse and just nothing.
Yes, I think that the other person, will, as soon as the door is open, he'll just walk out. Because this is degrading for Azeris not to have their mother tongue. This is a degradation of the mother of so many oppressed nationalities of Iran, and this is a humiliation of even those people who humiliate others, because their understanding of the world and their understanding of equality is somehow just crazy and backward, and this is a degradation of their ability to understand. You see, and this is something that they had to. If I had written all the books that I wrote in Persian, if I had written them in Turkish, and they had been able to read, now we would have 50 very good novelists. This is the truth. I mean,
and you'd also have better foreign policy advocating for your peoples, because the reason is it's silent. So other countries like America and the British don't really know what they don't care about what they don't know about and what is not going to help them.
You know that I spoke about this in the U.S. Congress too once when I was asked to testify. When
is this?
A long time ago. Yes, of course. This was in 76 or 77.
Wow! Just right after you had been released from the
Yes, from the Shah's prison. When I went to the States and I worked with the Committee for Artistic and Intellectual Freedom, I was its honorary chairperson.
Yeah.
And then we made arrangements through several friends that I would go to one of these committees, the Subcommittee for International Organizations.
Yeah.
They asked me to go and testify, and I went and testified there.
It's interesting because
the Shah was trying to stop it.
Yeah.
Because recently the documents that were published by his court minister, volumes, they are actually they are trying to stop me from testifying. Yes, and they don't succeed, of course.
Of course, and, we thank God.
And I went and testified, and that the testimony in the Congress has been published by New York Review of Books.
I think
if you want to see it, yes.
Yes, New York Review of Books.
It was published in 1976.
Thank you.
Yes. It was I think it was August 1976.
Because you have a lot of entries in the New York Review of Books and poems, but I didn't realize that you had spoken to the U.S. Congress. And it's interesting because the American...
The Congress itself also has published it. There's a book called Human Rights in 1976.
Human Rights in 1976.
Human Rights in the World, 1976. And my whole testimony has been published in that volume. You can simply just give a ring to the Library of Congress. And I'm sure that if they have, enough copies, they will send a copy to you.
This is Azerbaijani Ordular Yurdu Radio 102.7 FM CFRO Vancouver Co-op Station.
You are listening to an interview with Iran's finest living poet and the best literary critic, Azerbaijani Iranian Dr. Reza Baraheni.
I will do that because I just as former President Carter was going in, and he was known as the human rights activist, and then you read different documentations, and the American narrative is that we didn't know that the human rights violations were so grotesque and severe and so bad, and our intelligence didn't realize that. But I'm backtracking, and I'm beginning to realize you were in the States then during that time. So it sounds like there were a lot of other voices and people who could be documented before the 1979 revolution happened, when people felt like their rights had been taken away from them, but governments weren't listening.
In the sixth volume of the memoirs of the Shah's Minister of Court, which has been published recently, there is the Shah actually tells his court minister, do something about this Baraheni. He's going to the Congress.
Yeah.
And he gets in touch with, he says that I've talked with someone, he says, Professor Yar Shatir. And Professor Yar Shatir is the head of the Iranian Columbia, the Iranian, encyclopedia.
Oh,
and
okay.
he's a professor at he's 90 years old, but he's still a professor of the Columbia University. And then somebody in those days, somebody wrote an article and said, Reza Baraheni, and this was in Philadelphia Inquirer, I read it there.
Wow, okay.
Poet or spy? So I in those days, and this was, just there were small references to me, but at the same time they wanted to pretend that I was,
they wanted to discredit you. They wanted to discredit you.
Me. So I spoke with my friend Allen Ginsberg. In those days, he was alive.
Okay.
And I talked with him, and in those days he had written a book on drugs in Vietnam, because there were American soldiers who were getting, drugs and all kinds of things in Vietnam.
Yes.
And he had made a study of that. In making a study of that, he had been also, he had contacts with the American security. So I told Allen Ginsberg, and I said, what do you think of this? He said, let me try and find out who the writer is. And he went and found out the writer, and the writer was a former CIA agent who had become a correspondent, had written this. I didn't know that it was documented by the Shah's Minister of Court, and it came out just recently, and I saw it, and it was really funny that these people have the courage to even get in touch with the CIA and try to label me as as an agent.
Yeah.
So in those days, I took action against this professor, and I wanted to sue him, but it was the years when in fact, I spoke with Ramsey Clark, and Razi Clark and I went to the U.S. Congress.
Yes.
And we had a, we gave a press conference there, and in those years, of course, I was in touch with the U.S. Congress, and I went and saw Senator Kennedy, Senator McGovern, and one or two other, either representatives.
Senator Kennedy.
And they wanted to stop me from doing something against. We wanted to tell them that this was happening, and of course,
yeah.
I talked mostly. Kennedy didn't have the time. He just shook hands with us, and he said that please talk with others and tell them. And we went to McGovern, and I spoke with.
Yes, I remember McGovern.
McGovern, and then the head of the committee that took my testimony was Donald Fraser, and it was a subcommittee on human rights issues. It has been published, and my whole testimony and also the questions and answers have been published there.
This is really interesting. It shows that the information. This is showing that the information has always been there and is always available to us. We just need to use it for good and make sense of it all.
And someone else has also written an article. I'll send it to you. Apparently, it's a young woman has written an article about my activities on human rights issues.
That I would be most grateful. I'd be most grateful for that. And what you're even speaking about, especially going back to how the progress and the future of Iran as a country or just in existence, federalism and just United States of Iran, if possible. I noticed that you had been scheduled to speak at the UNPO, Unrepresented Nations Peoples Organization, and that topic was there alive and well with some of its speakers talking about how to move forward Iran has to discuss the issues that are going on, or even the green movement, which is so popular in America. The green movement, there has to be dialogue about all the different nationalities going on, and not just banding under green movement and the Persian movement, because that's what Americans see, that the green movement is a Persian movement, not.
Well, first of all, let me tell you that the head of the green movement is a Turk.
I didn't even know he had a head.
Yes, of course. He comes from Azerbaijan.
You mean Mir Hussein Mousavi?
Yes.
Yes.
He's an Azeri, and a friend of mine several years ago showed a picture with myself and a painter friend of mine discussing things and walking, in the street, and a young boy behind us following us, and he asked me, "Do you know this young boy?" I said, "He seems to be familiar. I don't know him." "No, who is he?" He said, "He's now the Prime Minister of Iran."
No way.
So in the old days, actually, it was that friend of mine was the country's most famous painter, and his name was Mansour Khandriz.
Mansour Khandriz. Okay.
Khandriz, Ghandriz.
Thank you.
And the young boy, who's Mousavi is about, I would say, 10 years younger than I am.
Yeah.
And the young boy who was walking behind us was taking notes. In those days, he was interested in art, and he was trying to be an artist.
Mousavi was trying to be an artist.
Yes, of course, he paints.
You know what is interesting? What I do learn.
His wife also is painter.
She is.
In fact, his cousin was used to be my publisher in Iran.
Interesting.
And then the present government several years ago actually set fire to his bookstore, So he stopped and went back to his father's business, which is a dairy business.
Wow. That is interesting. But what would you say, Dr. Baraheni, about what it seems to be that for him to be successful and to be this leader, he had to put aside his Turkish heritage. He's only brought it up in terms of wanting to garner votes, is what some say.
No, the problem is that when he went to Azerbaijan to speak, that is Musavi, people of course wanted him to speak in Turkish.
Yes.
And I think he should have spoken in Turkish.
Mm.
That's very important.
Mm-hmm.
And although he said a few words in Turkish, he started speaking in Persian.
Mm.
And when I was thrown out of the university, he was actually the prime minister.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In other words, he knows about me.
Well, he knows about you, and he also knows about the violation of rights that Turks are not allowed to.
Yes. In those years, you see, early in the revolution, Khamenei, the present leader,
yes,
was the president, and Musavi was the prime minister. In those days, we had both a prime minister and a president.
Yes.
And then, of course, the leader, who was Khomeini himself.
Yes.
And but later they got rid of the position of
the prime minister.
The prime minister, yes.
And I know that the leaders who are Turk in the parliament, and of course Musavi being a Turk, why can't they from inside work for implementing the constitutional rights of the different national? What is stopping them?
Nothing. I mean, nothing could stop them. The problem is that they think that if they do that, the country may disintegrate, and that's why they have made Persian compulsory for anyone, anywhere in schools. I think that they're completely wrong. I think that only a democratic equality among the nationalities can save that country from, falling apart. If you stop the democratic process of people, Iranian Azerbaijan is 3 times bigger than, in population.
Than North Azerbaijan, the Republic.
Azerbaijan.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And they don't want to be swallowed by our Azerbaijan.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is that, these places, most of these places are from the old Iranian Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Northern Azerbaijan was taken by the Russians in the 18th century, and also almost all the Caspian, the border,
yes. Mm-hmm.
The limits of the Caspian, almost all those countries, including Afghanistan, they used to be a part of Iran. You see, and it was Iran of the old days. Actually, was almost as big as Soviet Union. Yes, and the Soviets, of course, the Russian army in the old days took parts of Iran. The British actually separated Afghanistan from Iran.
Really, the British separated that? I can't believe
yes.
that. Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then Tajikistan and the Central Asian republics of the former Soviet Union, but now liberated, all of them used to belong to Iran.
So you're going to be speaking in Vancouver here. What are you hoping to communicate to the audience that you're going to have?
I will speak of personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I would simply speak of personal experience. At school, when I was a child, And the discrepancy, the difficulty between the school and home,
Yes.
when everybody at home spoke Turkish and everybody at school spoke Turkish,
Yes.
but when you went to the classes were in Persian.
Yes.
And Persian was a typical foreign language.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Although I mastered it and I became, a known writer in it,
Mm-hmm.
the fact was that
You became the father of...
Yes. Then the parents, of course, were all illiterate. And I'm going to talk about this kind of illiteracy and why most of the people in the oppressed nationalities stay illiterate.
Yes.
The reason for that. And actually, literacy in Iran means being educated in Persian.
If the international community was willing and able, what would you want them to do? Non-Iranians, how would you want them to address this issue of racism, this issue of suppression, this issue of one language is superior and should dominate others? How would you want them to address it?
I think that the most important thing would be, the human rights resolution, the human rights thing published by the United Nations. I think
the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the Declaration of Human Rights. I think that this immediately everybody in the world should ask the government of Iran to apply it to the oppressed nationalities of Iran and let them have their own language and culture.
Mm-hmm.
I think that if they start having their language and culture, then this will be against separatism, because separatism will mean war,
mm-hmm.
and I don't want war.
Yeah.
I think that the best thing, of course, would be to give them their rights,
mm-hmm.
equal rights with the Persians,
mm-hmm.
in everything.
Mm.
And then they can actually, maybe it will be a kind of federation.
Mm-hmm.
This is the kind of thing that can happen.
Is there any book? Oh, I'm here. Is there any book or anything that you would want that might be accessible easily to the non-Iranian or the American community, Western community, that you want them to read that would open their eyes more about the issue of racism? I know that there's a recent book from Reza Baraheni, Iran and the Challenge of Democracy.
I was going to mention that. Yes, and I read that book before it was published.
Yes,
and it's a very good book. There is also an article that has been written about me but has not been published. I think I'll send that also to you.
Dr. Baraheni, I am so grateful for this opportunity to talk to you and just to understand more and learn about the different challenges on a personal level in Iran and the different peoples and what they face and what they need from the international community to move forward and help Iran be more tolerant.
Yes, well, thank you so much. I'm glad that you called, and I'm glad that we talked. It's very important, to bring these issues to the attention of the public, and so that we can get, the public opinion on our side.
I agree.
And I know that some of the, more racist Persians are not silent on these things. They are making all kinds of, intervention everywhere.
Yes.
But I think that at the end we'll win because we are right.
Even if you take...
We're on the right side, yes.
The Association for the Defense of the Azerbaijani Political Prisoner in Iran. What do you think of that organization? ADAP?
Yes, of course. I think that that's an excellent organization.
Because there are many who think that they're wrong and they're separatists, but with all the work that I've seen with them, they just advocate for what you've been talking about, cultural and linguistic rights and equal rights, really.
Yes, I think that those people who accuse ADAC or any other organization of being separatist, of being traitor, of being any of those things, it's just a misunderstanding of the situation. And also the fear that the country will be separated, will be divided into several countries. Now, in order for that not to happen, they've got to take the other alternative. That is the alternative of thinking that those the inhabitants of those provinces of the oppressed nationalities, they're also human, and they would like to have their human rights. And without that human right, everybody will simply go berserk. And they will simply say, we don't want you, and we will just move away. In order for it not to happen, they've got to understand what the situation is. Well, thank you so much. You've taken so much of your time.
You as well, Chokes down.